Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell. This is Democracy's Day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause. And the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation. We come together as one nation, under God, in 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic for their presence here today, I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his life, by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us. In peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time two. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, a cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate than terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. It requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know that we're all created equal, and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization, through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces. There is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. Moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as in America, when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh. All destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture. We have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the Great Mall at another inaugural. Thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine was saying to my objects of their love, what are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation, thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. We're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I send our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances, and will lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. In a moment of silent prayer, remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads. Let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Back on our democracy and on truth. A raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master as well? I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States. To me, it's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart, you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, they did their duty. They healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. We shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is purpose and resolve. We turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country.